What's up guys, Jake here with JakesGotHerps, not to be confused with herpes because herpes is nasty, and when people talk about parental care in animals, generally they think of birds and mammals. Did you know that frogs actually exhibit quite a bit of parental care, and in fact, there's a genus of frogs that raise their babies all the way from tadpole to froglet stage, and today, that's what we're going to be taking a look at. Now, we've talked a little bit about these before. These are frogs in the genus Oophaga, also known as obligates. Today we're mainly going to be focusing on the Pumilio, which is the most common of the obligates, but I do have some others that I'm really excited to share with you. So I figured in this video I would take you sort of through the life cycle of an obligate and how they breed and I guess what it all entails. So to start out with, obviously you're going to need a male and a female to produce more offspring. Generally these guys will lay eggs on pretty much any flat surface like plants. So most of the time you'll find them like these. It's hard to see, but those are a couple eggs. They'll actually lay them on these bromeliads. Now if this was another species of dart frog, that's basically where the process would end. I would collect the eggs, and when they hatched I would set them up as tadpoles. But with these species, they have a really specific diet as tadpoles, which is why they're called obligates. They're obligate egg eaters. So basically when these hatch, actually I'm already getting ahead of myself. While they're eggs, the male will actually guard them. So he'll just kind of sit around and make sure like pests don't get on the eggs. And actually, when the eggs get dirty like those, he'll actually try and clean them off by peeing on them. Which it's an interesting parenting strategy. I wouldn't recommend it if you have a kid. Just take my word for it. It's probably not ideal. And once the eggs hatch or are close to hatching, the female will actually sit down near them, and tadpoles will use basically suction to her back, and she'll drop them off at a suitable source of water, which in the wild is generally plants like these bromeliads. There'll be some water in there. But in captivity, you can also use these canisters. They work pretty well. In some species, it'll actually be the male that will move the tadpoles, like the Epipetibades, Anthonii, Santa Isabels that I showed you guys. That's actually the male that'll move them, but in this case, it's the female. She'll pick out a spot, and then from there, the male's job is kind of done. He's got it pretty easy. I don't know if you can see in there, but there's an example. That's a pretty freshly hatched tadpole. They are quite small at first. And once the female has the tadpole in the water, she'll actually make her rounds periodically to all the water sources that she's dropped tadpoles off in. And the way she knows if there's one in there is the female will actually climb in the water and wait for the tadpole to basically brush against her. And then once that happens, she'll lay 1 or 2 infertile eggs for the tadpole to eat and then continue to make her rounds. So right there is a pretty freshly hatched one, I would say. And then in this one over here, let's see if I get my light out. It's a little tough to see in this film canister, but if you look, those white things are actually infertile eggs that the female left for this particular tadpole. And that's a pretty decent sized tadpole. It doesn't have any back limbs yet, so it's probably like a few weeks old, but looking pretty good, pretty robust. Since these frogs breed in the rainy season, it's basically raining multiple times a day, meaning that the water source that the tadpole is in is going to be flushed out with fresh water pretty much constantly. So it is important to give these tadpoles fresh water and do little partial water changes. So that one right there that I just showed you, I dumped out probably half the water, and now I'm gonna just top it off with some tadpole tea. Just like that. Also, if you have like a misting system, that works really well also. I don't have a ton of obligates right now, so I'm not quite there yet, but and while I'm doing that, I also like to top off just all the water sources, just so they have a lot of choices where they want to put their babies. You can see in there's a female. She's just checking on her tadpoles. There's actually a pretty decent looking, it's not quite a froglet yet, but it's starting to grow its limbs. You can't really see it. You can kind of actually see its tail sticking out. And as the female continues to feed her tadpoles, they'll start to grow. Eventually they'll sprout some back limbs and front arms. Once the froglet morphs out of the water, it'll actually hop down from the bromeliad, and that's basically when the female's work is done and my work begins. So at this point, the babies will just kind of live down in the leaf litter, and I feed them a bunch of springtails and isopods. So I frequently add those to the leaf litter, and they just kind of live down in there. I leave them in the tank until they get a pretty decent size, and then from there, I actually take them out and I put them in these are what, like 5.5 gallon tanks. They seem to work pretty well. And that's basically the gist of it. It's a little oversimplified, but essentially the parents are going to be doing the majority of the work. It's just kind of on me to make sure the babies have things to eat and they get, proper water changes. But it's a really cool process to watch go through, just finding eggs on these bromeliads, watching them turn into these cute little tadpoles, and then eventually seeing them morph out of the water and then searching for them in the leaf litter. It's just really exciting. See if we can find some more froglets. If you take a peek down here, you can see a little El Dorado froglet. This one's probably a few months old, looking really nice. And getting ready for me to take him out of the tank. Like I said, I like to leave these in the tank as long as possible. I just find they do a lot better than if you remove them immediately. Like I also did just feed them. You can see these flies. He's probably on the hunt, but yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If there's anything I didn't cover in enough detail, just let me know and I'll get back to you on that. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys later.